homework?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and so do we have any questions from the homework?
I think the homework is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
I have a question about the homework, Ms. Bowman.
Sorry, somebody's speaking. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me better now?
No, it just sounds muffled.
Okay.
Are you still speaking or no? You were saying something or no?
Is it better now?
It's a little better. Go ahead.
I said I had a question about the homework.
Okay, which question?
It was one of the multiple choice questions, number 2. I just wanted to know what the answer for that one would have been because I wasn't too sure about it.
Okay, does anybody have I'm gonna pull it up right now so I can read what the question is. Does anybody have the answer for multiple choice question number 2?
Hold on, let me bring mine up.
Let me see.
Okay.
Recording in progress.
No, nobody?
I try to pull mine up.
I tried to put mine up.
Okay. Oh, I was wondering. I was like, wait a minute. You just said we're doing this over. Okay,
No,
let's
I
look
did
at
it on my work computer and I opened, I sent it to my email, so I'm trying to pull it up.
Okay, so it says, which of the following statement is not correct? And remember, the questions sometimes are a bit tricky. And so you want to ensure that you read the question properly. In the intro exam, there's one particular question, the first question that says, money laundering is placement, integration, and it doesn't say layering, it says like segregation, but people just see placement and layering and they tick the first one and they go on. So please, sometimes they're tricky. Please read the entire question and ensure that you understand it. It said, which of the following statements is not correct? Okay, and then it says A, every company risk rating framework should be approved by its board of directors. The Central Bank of the Bahamas recommends that enhanced due diligence be conducted at onboarding phase for all customers. The Financial Action Task Force recommends that financial institutions should adopt a risk-based approach to customer due diligence. The risk rating of customers was established in the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision paper on customer due diligence. Okay, so which one is not correct?
So I thought that it might have been D, but I'm not sure about the answer. So I just wanted everyone's feedback on that.
Yes, you are correct. B is correct. It says that enhanced due diligence should be conducted for all customers. No, it's for high risk. Okay, did everybody get B?
Okay.
Yeah, so the correct, it should say that enhanced due diligence is conducted on high risk customers, not on all. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Any other questions on the homework? No? Okay.
Ms. Bullard, one question. This about the actual homework with the 4 questions. We had one mandatory question that you said would be on the exam. That's the first one.
Yeah.
Then the other 3, I could just do them myself and then.
No. Okay. There's a mandatory question on the exam. This was not a mandatory homework question. I just suggested that everybody should do this because more than likely on the final exam, this would be the mandatory question topic. So this wasn't a mandatory homework. But if you did.
Sorry, I probably was unclear. What I'm asking is, no, go ahead.
If you answered question 1, that's it for your homework.
No, I was asking, should I practice the other 2, 3, and 4?
Yes, you should practice.
Just like answer it like it's going to get marked and just read it over and stuff like that for the exam. Would that be helpful?
Yes, it will.
Okay.
Because more than likely you will see different versions of these questions. All of these are past exam questions. And so you more than likely you see various versions of these questions on the exam. So it's good for practice. Okay, now. Okay, so some of you, I got a number of persons that did submit question 1, so very good. You're ahead right now. Some persons, I don't know if they missed the first class or they did not listen to the recording, because while I didn't write it in the question 1, I did say to please make it applicable to the Bahamas or use some Bahamas examples, because more than likely on this question, it's going to be geared towards the Bahamas. Now, when I first started to look at the homework being the cross marker, she called me and she said, did you tell them, and you know, to add Bahamas? And I said, yes, I did. Because the first few persons did not add Bahamas. And so the persons who did not add that, just so we could give you a reasonable grade, we sent that homework back. And we're going to give you the opportunity to put the Bahamas examples in and then hand it in. Go ahead.
Ms. Bullitt, I have a question. When you say refer to the Bahamas, okay, so you want us to list some of the fraud cases, or you want us to list like some of the fraud that happens in the Bahamas?
No, the fraud cases. So you could just go online and research, and there are millions.
I wanted to make sure I was in the right thing. Okay.
Yeah. I don't want to say millions, but there have been a lot.
Yeah, I know. I was wondering if you was meaning refer to cases like that actually made the news and stuff, or like that.
Yeah, so there's a lot that have made the news, and prior to money laundering being a predicate crime in the Bahamas, which only just happened in 2018, persons were always charged with fraud because it carries a lesser charge than money laundering. And so just recently, after 2018, when the laws were updated, you would see persons being charged with fraud and money laundering, stealing by reason of employment and money laundering, corruption and money laundering. But prior, it was just fraud. And so that's why our numbers are not reflecting, you know, with the FATF and the international bodies, because we just gave everybody a lesser charge of fraud, threw them in jail for 2 years, and then that was it. But money laundering itself, I think, should carries a minimum of a 10 or 15-year sentence. So, you know, when you listen to the persons being brought before the court or on the news, you will hear different counts. Some of them had up to 54 counts for various different things they did.
I was reading a report from Central Bank where they're saying 5.2 million was in payment fraud in 2020.
Yep. So. Yep. During the pandemic. Yep. A lot of people went to jail. At least a lot of people were arrested. Okay, so good. So those persons who got their homework back, just add in the Bahamas, and that'll help you to be fully prepared for the final in terms of the mandatory question. And then other persons did a very good job. Yes, go ahead.
In regards to when you were saying they could add in the Bahamas, I didn't do the question. But speaking about the pandemic, would all those persons, I know for sure there was a lady, I think, that got charged with over 100. She got charged with over 100 charges of doing the false COVID tests. Would that fall into this?
Yeah, that's fraud.
Okay, so that I said to tell them that's probably an example that they could use for this.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So when it comes to fraud, the papers are very good. The media is good at just saying exactly what happened, and so it won't be difficult to find any Bahamian fraud cases. Okay, and there's been a lot recently. Okay, good. And so good that persons are getting the homework out. I hope now that makes everything a little bit clearer about who the Eggman group is and what they do and the importance of it. Okay, so person said that they would have read the newspaper. Who wants to share what they read in the newspaper this week?
I could go. I read an application about due diligence. It's essentially a case about due diligence with the PLP and the FNM, where the trade unions, they basically their names were put down basically as PLP supporters because a memorandum was given to the PLP council that these trade unionists were supporting them. But this 9, I think, affiliate groups of the trade unions did not know what the memorandum contained. They were not aware of the document at all. So it was basically bad on the PLP. The author of the Tribune called the PLP out, basically saying that it was bad due diligence on their part. And ironically, the PLP had called out the FNM for a lack of due diligence on the Oban deal. So it just was interesting reading about how due diligence could come in many forms.
Yes. And again, that sparked a big controversy because the day of the proposed signing, Eyewitness News had covered it. And of course, most persons listen to the media, and that would have sent out, 2 weeks before election, that would have sent out a signal to the country that, hey, the unions are on board with PLP, and that that they already know what their asks are, and they are in agreement. So definitely they need to win this government to carry out all these. I guess the teachers have issues, the hotel workers have issues, the BEC on strike. There's been lots of strikes, NIB. So that would have sent out how many government employees do we have an estimate? Anybody knows off the top of their head?
The ones that actually work, or the employees themselves?
just counting everybody.
I think they say thousands, eh?
Sorry?
How much?
I think they just gave like a general thousands. I don't think they listed a number.
Yeah, so I mean, all of the government entities, it sums up to thousands of, we could have about, like say, minimum 60,000 government employees. So that would have sent a message to them that said, vote PLP because they've signed this memorandum and they agreed to what we asked. And so that means we'll be getting promoted, we'll be getting money, stipends, and everything that's owed to us. People will be becoming permanent. Minimum wage is going to go up to $250, all sorts of stuff, and it just simply wasn't correct. I think there was one, I read the backstory where they said there was actually one head of the union who proposes to run under the PLP ticket in the next general election, and he was the only person that signed. So he made it seem as if all the unions had come together and they had made this agreement, and it wasn't so. So Eyewitness News, who had covered it, I mean, Clint was extremely upset the other day because he had covered the entire signing and everything to find out that it was a bit, I guess, fraudulent, and it may have seemed like all the unions were on board and their issues had been discussed and the PLP had agreed to do it, and that was not so. So he was very, very upset, the day after.
Guy who signed?
Sorry?
The Evans guy?
Yeah, I think it was the Evans guy that they said now they are calling for his removal. So he had signed it on behalf. I imagine that, there's separate unions and then all the unions come together as one body. And somebody, I'm not certain if he is the president or what have you, but there has to be a board. And so the other union simply said that their issues haven't been discussed. It didn't go before their board. And Evans would have signed that on behalf of himself, not even representing the body, the union. His own union that he is in charge of, which is, I think, the National Workers or one of those. Yeah. Okay, so good, Alicia. Do proper due diligence and ensure that, we don't just put things out there in the media, because all over America, the media is definitely controlled and it's owned by one particular company, and I think that's GE. So they control. I mean, you can just watch Fox News and CNN. If you're Democratic, of course, they support CNN. If you're Republican, they support the Republicans. And then there's this OAN station. They have to be owned by Donald Trump, because I mean they everything. Has anybody ever watched this?
No.
OAN.
No, I haven't heard of it.
Yeah, don't waste your time, because they all they do is if they praise Donald Trump all day long, and they say all the garbage that he says and how great he is and how wonderful he is, and how they are still saying that the election was stolen. I mean, how many months later is this now? So yeah, he has to own that personally himself. Yeah. Okay, so the media is controlled, and I always say when you read a newspaper article, find out who the author is, find out how they are politically affiliated, who a little bit of background, how they grew up, and then you will see when they write these articles how where their perspective comes from, and then it may be skewed a little bit based on their background. So you want to do a little bit of research before you hold it as gospel, right? But in our country, we have a lot of grassroots persons, and they don't really, they listen to the news and that's it. Whatever the news says is gospel. So the people that watch the news on, let's say it was Wednesday, they find out that the PLP signed this MOA with the unions, and they run with it. They ain't watch the news for the rest of the week. So now you can't tell them, you can't tell them, especially if they work for government, that they must not vote for the PLP so they can be straight after this new election. That it's gone. That word being spread throughout the Bahamas. Okay, and they will fight you. Some of them will fight you if you dare tell them it ain't true, because they hear it. Clint say so. So that's the season that we in right now. Okay, so be careful of the media. Be careful. Okay. All right, very good. Go ahead, Felicia.
Talking about the media, we're having a discussion about this a few days ago in regards to these reporters who, even though, yes, they're doing their job and they're trying to get the story across, the way it comes across, you can almost tell whom they are politically affiliated with. Like, I honestly feel as if Jasper Ward, you can't tell me she ain't a PLP.
Who's that?
Jasper Ward is the one who was pretty much, she really made a name for herself during this pandemic because she just was on everything. And when Dr. Minnis was having these press conferences, like she's a very good reporter, young up. Well, I can't say upcoming no more because she is the reporter now that people want. But it's almost as if the questions that she asks, you could almost tell as if she's looking for him to fail. I honestly just feel as if she's a PLP, but she's an awesome reporter. Even like some of the questions they ask, not only her, reporters on the whole, even during Dorian. Oh, how do you know that the people are dead? What? Me? I'm just a regular person and I know when someone is dead. Like he's a doctor. So sometimes some of the questions that these reporters ask is as if they're looking for the person to say the wrong thing so that they could make a storyline about what the person said, just to have a story.
Yeah, or definitely if they make mistakes, they promote them and they replay them 100% of the time. Now, exactly. I like Eyewitness News, and I think Clint is a very good reporter. However,
he's a PLP as well.
Yeah. Well, Sabas ran on the PLP ticket in the last election, but he dropped out. And he owns Eyewitness News, so of course they promote that agenda. And then you see Wayne Monroe, he's running in Freetown. He's sitting next to Rodney Monka every day, and so Rodney Monka is saying he's F&M, but he's voting for the PLP.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but yeah, so you would know. So you have to, like I say, dissect some of the information that you get, because how they are affiliated, and they may be a little biased because of their affiliations. Okay, so very, very good, ladies. And anybody else?
I'll go, Miss Bullard.
Go ahead.
I read an article on pretty much how the government still hasn't reported their fiscal affairs. And even though election is like 14 days away now, they still haven't reported anything, and how the government is still in breach of the Fiscal Responsibility Act. And they're still not really being held accountable as any, regular Bahamian citizen.
Okay. So this fiscally responsible, I don't know any background about it.
I don't know any background either, but what the article pretty much said was that the government always has the responsibility to report any fiscal affairs before any election, any pre-election.
But wouldn't they have done that in the budget? I mean, didn't they? I mean, wouldn't the budget?
I don't think that they did.
So what would be missing? I mean, what else could they say?
I don't
know. Does anybody
know? I guess actual figures, because really and truly the government they haven't given us real figures since they've really been in power. We just know that they just keep spending money.
Are you sure the budget is, have you seen the budget even has their own web page? Their actual figures.
I know the budget is it's long. I know the budget was long, to be honest.
Yeah, but they did snapshot.
They gave figures. It's more or less people still on this whole where to pack money. So I think that's what they're referring to, because the budget, they presented the budget has figures, but everyone just still hung up on this whole where the back money going. I think that's more or less what they want to talk to, the back money.
And I think it's about the government's revenue, actually. It's like the revenue and the expenditure. They don't really say how much they really, really spend. People just speculate.
No, but they give figures. So even when
they give a projected figure. They don't never say, well, we spent this amount.
Yeah, but it has to be, it just has to be, it's document. I know I hate when they even say the consolidated fund. I show myself on the floor, because I said, there is a consolidated fund. However, who are the accountants, where the financials? So it's documented. It's probably not to the public entirely. And so that act has to be put in place in order for it to, I guess, be published. That's all I can say. But I'm certain that there is accountability and documentation as to where exactly all the money is going and how it is spent.
And that too, I feel like that's an argument for the opposing party as well, because election was called so early. So everything is just pretty much politics.
Correct, because if the law ain't in place, that means the PLP never put it out as fair.
How much times the PLP break the law, the FM break the law, all of them break the law.
Exactly.
Yeah, correct.
So
PD is better than Paul.
It's like, this is another story that reporters just need to get out there. So that's just reporters doing their job.
Yeah. And you can't even blame them.
Yeah, agreed. So very good.
Well, now the FM definitely don't care, because the election is like, I just feel like Minister's just tired of the whole thing. Like, he's just tired of ungrateful people, because humans really are ungrateful. And they act as if they know it all.
And we depend too heavily on the government.
As if we know it all. And when we see things don't go our way, then we have a problem. But we don't really understand the underlying issues and what it takes to actually run a country.
Right. And to be in a deficit and experience Dorian and then the pandemic, and then have to feed all those people and keep the country above the water. They don't understand the magnitude of what that took and what that still is taking. But
here's my issue with these people. These same people who I'm going to speak in general now. I'm not. I'm going to stereotype now, right? People who lost their jobs. Y'all lost your jobs. Y'all know y'all don't have a job, but y'all can find money to go to the liquor store, to throw parties, and then still not all minutes you need to do something. We don't have no food, but the couple of dollars you had, instead you go buy some food and put that up for a rainy day. You go into the liquor store.
Please, let us live, please. Let us live. We don't have a job. We sit home all day long. You don't want us to drink. You don't want us to go to the mall and get the air conditioning.
$100, Miss Bullet, if you have $100, you mean the time you're going to go spend that $100 on liquor, go spend $10 on your liquor, go put $20 or something, go buy a bag of rice and some tea.
No, it has to go to the liquor store. The mental anguish that I'm suffering.
Go out, Miss Bullet, but you will spend all the money you have in your pocket.
That's an excuse.
Miss Bullet, you try to have argument.
No, I'm sorry. I already don't have a job. I got to drink.
No,
something
but
that keep me
priority
calm.
is
No,
you
Something
don't have
that
a
keep
job.
me calm in the
But
day.
the priority
Then you
is
mad saying, oh, minutes call. I don't have this, I don't have this. When minutes told y'all, keep your masks on, wash your hands and stay socially distant. But no, y'all won't be in the bar, in the club next to each other, snapping. Now
'Cause
y'all
I
have
drink-
COVID and y'all mad.
Because I drink my bush medicine. That's
Yeah,
why it's great
yeah.
therapy.
You drink your bush medicine and you take your COVID test, Miss Bullet. That's the problem.
No, but let me tell you, during the pandemic, when the mall was open, I could not find a space to park. I had to drive around 3 times. There was so much traffic on the road. I mean,
Yeah.
even now, gas is $5.24 a gallon. I don't see any less traffic. I don't see
This our new
anybody.
reality. This our new reality. So I'm not gonna say everyone have to stay home, but if y'all know this would be delivered now, we have to be smart about it. And I don't care about y'all right now. I care about me. I don't
But
care if y'all
we
go there and
wasn't,
catch it. I don't want to catch it. So I
we
can
wasn't
protect
raised,
myself.
Felicia, we wasn't raised that way. We are a third world country with first world status. We never really had a
What
struggle,
more do
and
we need
this
to know
is
that
like the
what's
first
now
major
is
struggle of our
different?
time.
Yeah, but
Miss
we
Bullet,
2
we've
years
been
in.
struggling for almost 2 years. Come on now.
Happy we
Yeah,
2
but
years
gotta
that's
get
what
it
I
in.
mean.
We don't know
together.
what
That's
to
the
do
first
yet.
But the thing about it
The
is,
struggle ain't new no more. This ain't a new struggle.
okay, so
Exactly.
what is our culture? We
Stupidity.
We can't continue to blame it on culture.
No, but I think
We have
this
to
is what we
change
used
the
to do
culture.
This is what we used to do when we
But
go
Miss
to
Bullet,
work
if you're
on
used to doing
Friday.
something and it don't work, obviously, you as a human being, you change the way you live. If you've
That's a good
always been
idea.
used to something and you complain about the way that you are used to doing something, then change it. I tired of being saying, we always saying, oh, this is our culture. No, if you have a problem with the culture, then change it. And this is why they have a problem with young people, because young people don't actually speak their mind and say what is what.
Mislead. It takes, first of all, 21 days to change a habit. 21 days.
We 2 years in this
How much days we had? That's 366 days.
Hey, and then you have to check sustainability after 90 days. After you know what it is.
No, it sounds like an excuse for procrastination.
No, Mislead. See, you don't know what it is to lose your job and have to sit down and think about how I could pay the mortgage, how I could feed the children, how I could do this. You have no, choice but to go drinking and make sure that the head stay intact.
You don't have a job and the couple dollars you have, you can go blow it. You ain't making no sense. You worrying about how the light will stay on, but rather you go put $20 on the light, you will go take $20 to Kirky. Come on, Miss Bullet. Come on.
You know, just how the light bill can stay on, because Miss Bullet during the pandemic was the time where I really saw how gifted the humans could be. Do you know how much small businesses that these people open?
Exactly.
Miss Bullet, I used to do financial coaching for clients, and when you sit down and you actually listen to the customers and like the money that they have and the money that they make, Miss Bullet, Bahamians waste their money and their talent on foolishness. Yeah. There's money. Money is there.
Yep.
So the excuses, I really can't. I can't do the excuses anymore.
But hard times really make people successful, you know.
Exactly.
Trauma brings out success and the best.
2 years later, these businesses still up and running.
Mm-hmm.
It's easier said than done. Ladies, it's easier said than done. Okay, but
they don't want
I used to say it was easier said than done until I actually witnessed firsthand. Like till I see. To be honest, even as far as the people complaining about, they didn't have no food and this and that. But when you saw the boxes that the government was giving away with like the rice and the bag of meat, when I actually saw one of the boxes, I said, wow, Bahamians really ungrateful. If I didn't have it, I would go ahead and go and get one of them boxes. It's like the grits and the egg, and well, not the egg, the corned beef, grits.
Enough to hold a
rice. This is what y'all is making on a day-to-day. Why y'all still complaining? Because y'all want steak?
Because they want meat.
Meat. Felicia, there was meat in the bag. When I saw it was 2 different types of meat. Yes. Oh. And people, and to be honest, my nail tech, she got a bottle, she would say it, but she's like, if the government giving it, I will take it because you're too ungrateful. I don't care how much money I make in a day. When I saw the box, I was in shock. It wasn't no scrappy box. They had 2 types of meat. They had tuna, corned beef, all in a bread basket items, but it still wasn't enough because it wasn't steak. Where y'all is trying steak on a daily basis? Why y'all want the government to give you a steak now?
Yeah, so a lot of people were ungrateful, but But anyway, at least you ladies get the gist of it. So very good, and keep abreast. And like I say, this is a good experience. So when you become future leaders, you know, you have some awareness how hard it is to control the population, how unruly people are, and
It is hard,
how
and
they
I
are,
don't think it's
where
fair
their
on the city
priorities
on
are.
it.
And then you could absolutely do your best, have no experience, and people will still complain anyway. So, you know, you really have to have, you know, a stronger faith to keep you going on. Because like you started off saying, ministers tired, he called election, he say, you know, I'm already established. I already made my money. I'm an established
like,
doctor. I
you
really
could
don't have
see
to
it on
go
his
through this.
face
So,
when he gave
yeah.
that press release. Like, he really died. Like,
Yeah, do what you want to do.
I just want to live.
I tired
Yeah.
for him.
But I really believe any government, they need at least 2 terms to be successful. So breaking right now and switching over everything to the PLP, I think would bring more detriment to the country. So that's just my 5 cents, you know. And in America, they try to do the same thing. Give 2 terms to the Dems, give 2 terms to the Republicans. But you know, Donald Trump was just out of control. So he only made it 1 season. So hopefully we'll see what happens. Okay. Okay. So good. Very good, ladies. Anybody getting their 5% today?
I have a story, but I see Deanna and Sheena hands are up.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead, Deanna.
I also read an article. It had nothing really AML related, but it was interesting because it goes to show how everything that is happening globally tends to trickle down and of course affect the smaller islands. But I've read where we're to expect price increases in groceries and basically wholesale items. Yes.
Diana, expect or I listen.
Well, we're seeing it. We're seeing it
by
because
my toilet paper has gone up.
Yes, everything has gone up. And as I was researching, and also I have family and friends living in Europe, France, and somewhere in England, and they've been seeing price increases also. Even, you know, they have a lot of farmers markets and fresh produce, and they've also increased prices. And come to find out that once cooking oil also increases, that kind of tends to affect all of the other bread and basket items that we would be purchasing.
Yep.
And so that was something interesting. So I think we're gonna have a very interesting Christmas, but I don't think that would affect the buying habits of
no. The people still gonna be out there shopping when you get to the mall. Yeah, when you get to the mall, you will drive around 3 times before you find a park. I'm telling you, nothing is going to change. Nothing is going to change.
Ms. Bullard, I also did, I attended a Rotaract meeting on Wednesday.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, and it was my first Rotaract meeting ever. It was very interesting. This was the Rotaract of Southeast Nassau Centennial. They basically spoke about membership retention and what it was like to transition from Rotaract to the Rotary. The length of, like, they had 3 persons speak. So the first person spoke about that. And then we had another person speak about the length of their time in the Rotary and why they were still in the club. So it was like an encouragement for all the new persons who were there and the existing members who were there to give feedback on why they were in the group and how they felt about the group. And then they also had, so it was the longest member who spoke. And what surprised me was the age ranges. They had folks from you know, the young, the new generation, all the way to the boomers. So it was really interesting to see that they could come together as a group and just do stuff for the community and give back. And then they also had someone speak about the leadership roles within the club. So I found it very interesting. And if my schedule was to ever reduce a bit, I would definitely consider joining. But it was good.
Okay, very, very good, Deanna. And again, I am very happy that you found it beneficial. And I do hope, yes, your schedule gets a bit lighter. And so you'll have this opportunity to network, because that seems like a good group, like you said, from the very young to the boomers. And so that's a good group to be in. And I'm sure very knowledgeable movers and shakers of the, corporate Bahamas. So excellent. Okay, Sheena?
Okay, good day. What caught my attention this week was the rise in deaths in COVID. I've known a few persons personally. I had a co-worker who got buried on Thursday, died from COVID. My aunt died last night. And listening to the news report, she's basically saying this is the third wave and we haven't reached the peak as yet. So we're gonna be looking for a lot more deaths to come with this COVID. So my thing is now just watching the persons.
Sheena, you went out? Sheena.
Still, I mean, you're still seeing a bunch of crowds, people still taking it seriously, as I think they should, because, hi, you can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. We can hear you.
Okay, now I'm saying I don't think the persons are taking COVID as serious as they need to, because the last weekend we were riding out by fish fry, and I mean,
Yeah, Sheena, you went out again.
It was a junk new morning. I mean, and the case, oh, you can't hear me? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, I said the deaths are rising and the cases are rising. So I don't know if people are using these preventative measures to try to curb this COVID. Like she said, we haven't reached the peak as yet. So that spells still danger for us to try curb the spread of COVID in the Bahamas. So that's what really got my attention this week.
Right. And Sheena, please, I see person sending in condolences. Please have our condolences on behalf of the class. We're very sorry for your loss, and you are absolutely correct. What I learned from this pandemic is that people are just very, very unruly, and people don't like to be confined. And all I can say is each of us, we have families, we have friends. We do see the majority of people out there without the mask, on top of each other, junkalooing, dancing, carrying on. Please protect yourself, because like Sheena is saying, this is very real. I've had a few deaths over the past 2 weeks as well. This is very, very real. Okay?
Yes,
so please, be responsible and take care of yourself.
Okay. And I also went to a Toastmasters International Club 1095 meeting also.
Okay. Tell us about it.
The topic was lead from where you are planted. So they basically had 3 speakers. So they talk about topics given. They did a great job, I should say. Talking individually, like how you can start from the bottom and you can excel once you just plant yourself and you focus on where you want to go and you do what you need to do to get where you want to go. Like basically classes, trainings, doing self-motivations. So I thought it was very well presented by them. And also the person who invited me, my coworker, she is actually receiving an international award for the first Bahamian woman ever. She's the top Toastmaster in the Bahamas, Antoinette Fox.
Oh, excellent.
So she's going to get that award very shortly. So they have a lot of great persons in the group, and they seem like they want to try wheel me in. So I'm interested in probably joining the group for that Toastmasters group. So I'm looking into that. So it was very great.
Yeah, excellent, Sheena. Did you get the word of the day?
The word of the day, there was a action for achievement was their topic. And the word was lead where you are planted. That was their heading for that day.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay, so very good, and I'm glad that you seem to be inspired, and again, sounds like a very good network to be in. So very good. Candace?
Yes, good morning, everyone. I also attended, Alicia would have informed us or invited us to the Southeast Nassau Rotary Club. And so, who was that? Deanna? I think she summed it up really, really well. But one of the speakers that stood out to me was Mr. Larry Trico. Mr. Larry Trico, he was in the club for 33 years, him and his wife. And he explained why he was in the club for that long. So because he was the longest standing member, he really drew me in. He really drew me in. He talked about how for him, he was working, you know, corporate world, etc., and he just needed more. And he found that helping people satisfy that need that he had. To him, it's the best club in the world. And he talked about how it's making a global impact. He feels like he's a part of something bigger than himself. And he mentioned how Rotary at one point partnered with Bill Gates to eliminate polio. And so, of course, he felt like he was a part of that. And he really talked well, and it was really interesting. He said for him, an event that stands out, that he looks forward to every year is the Christmas party at Sandilands. And so, yes, he's able to live a decent life, but at the same time, he's always humbled by this event. In particular, when he's able to go there and see how some people, you know, aren't as advantageous as he is. Some are just very disadvantaged, whether it is by birth or by economic status, and that keeps him humble and relatable. And so I just found it very interesting, and I'm looking forward to learning more about the club.
Okay, great. And I hope all of y'all, I am so pleased, and I hope that y'all mean this, that you're like excited and inspired and found it beneficial. And again, like I say, this is how, you know, it's all about networking and who you know, and you are here now, upgrading yourself. Somebody talked about training. I think it was Sheena saying that they talked about training, keeping current, just educating yourself and becoming knowledgeable, so that when you do become this future leader, you will be known. And when they say Candace Roll or Sheena Lightborn or Whistleyan, they know who you are already, and they can say, oh, I met her in this forum or another forum, and they get, you know, your name will be out there and be great already. So keep at it, and I promise you, it might take, you know, it won't take 33 years, but hey, it will all pay off in the end. It'll help you climb, you know, the corporate ladder. Okay, so stick with it and see if you can, in your downtime, you know, organize one evening per week or one per month, you know, for your corporate development. Because I know it's very difficult to, you know, go to work and attend school. But if you organize yourself and say, I dedicate this one evening per month or per week, if you have more time, to, you know, my corporate development, I promise you it'll pay off in a few years. Okay, so very good. I'm very pleased, ladies, because for a few weeks now, I know we've been tired and overwhelmed. So I was like, oh Lord, I pray that they have some free time to, you know, do these things that will be beneficial to them. So I'm very pleased today. So good job. Okay. So today we are on chapter 5. We are in these 3 chapters, 4, 5, and 6, that just talk about the risk-based approach. Hopefully by now we have some understanding. We understand what a risk-based approach means. We understand what we should do and how we should do it. And there are a lot of similarities in these chapters, but again, it may seem repetitive, but it is necessary, so you would be able to, you know, fully explain it properly. Because a lot of times we say, you know, risk-based approach, what does it mean? We don't know how to explain it. We say methodology, we don't know how to explain it. We say enhanced due diligence, but what does it mean? Okay, so we don't want to just speak eloquently, but we want to be knowledgeable and be able to not only explain, but carry out the policy and procedures and apply some of what we, some of this theory in our actual jobs, and to ensure that we grasp what all of this policy and procedure and requires us to do. Okay, so anybody had the opportunity to read chapter 5? No? You're going quiet on me now? We read chapter 5, Wesley.
I
Ms.
actually
Bullard.
read chapter 6 because I missed last week's class. I had a funeral to attend and I actually thought it was on chapter 6.
The 6th thing. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, that's fine. Sorry, go ahead. Deanna, go ahead.
Ms. Bullard, I was gonna say it in my defense, and I think in the other lady's defense too. Chapter 5 did seem a bit shorter, so I did say that, okay, I can definitely take this week to go through it in detail. So that's why I really didn't look at it much. But it does speak about the compliance systems, and I think from my perspective, because I'm actively working in it, I kind of skimmed over this one.
Okay. Okay, so that's fine. So again, like I said, it's a bit repetitive because again, they just want to send the message and ensure that it sticks. The book starts off saying that a risk-based approach to money laundering and terrorist risk allows a company to be flexible. And I've seen this question right here, and I think this is even in the homework, one of the multiple choice questions. And it says a risk-based approach, therefore, allows management to differentiate between customers by matching the risk in the particular business, high, medium, or low. These are the benefits. They allow senior management in certain circumstances to apply its own approach to the firm's procedures, systems, and controls. It helps with producing a more cost-effective system. How do we do that? By avoiding breaches, by avoiding fines, ensuring that the company stays compliant, and it ensures attention and resources are focused where there's greater risk. So of course, again, when we complete our risk assessment, we risk rate the different products and services. Do we need to pay more attention to corresponding banking accounts? Do we need to pay more attention to signatories to ensure that the controls are being maintained and that persons are staying within their thresholds? Do we need to increase monitoring? Okay, and so it goes on to talk about there's a lot of challenges for the regulators as well as the financial institutions. However, in situations where management fails to recognize or underestimate the risk, a culture may develop. And of course, I've worked in some institutions where the culture was pretty good. I started off in Royal Bank. I was there for 16 years. And again, the Canadian banks tend to be more conservative when it comes to risk. If, like I said, if the regulator requires one piece of ID, the Canadian banks are going to ask for 2. It's simply they put in some leeway for human error. They don't ever want to be in trouble with the regulators. If the regulator asks for one thing, they ask for 2. Okay, because they want to ensure that they cover human error and all the other little mishaps that could possibly happen. However, on the Swiss side I've worked, they have this culture of it's too difficult to do business. We need to make it easy. We are smarter than the regulator. They don't know what they are talking about, and so they are less stringent, and they dissect all policy and procedure that comes from the central bank or the Securities Commission, and they challenge it, and they definitely don't follow it. And so again, in that culture, if you are training up, if you're the head and this message that you're sending down, that we don't take training seriously, that we are smarter than the regulator and they don't know what they're talking about, of course that will disseminate throughout the institution, and then you will have possibly in some institutions now, not all, this nonchalant attitude towards risk. You would have inadequate resources again. compliance and risk. They don't make any money for the business. They avoid fines and penalties and breaches. However, they're not like sales that bring in the business at millions of dollars each year. So you would find that, you know, the concentration when it comes to bonuses and revenue and building a department goes to the sales or the relationship management department rather than compliance and risk. We normally have to fight, you know, to get that adequate staffing, adequate funding for systems and what have you to operate efficiently. So you want to be very careful about the message that you're seeing in your institution. Do we, you know, like how they say the police are our friends, are the regulators our friends? Do we welcome them? Are we hiding? Are we scrambling when audit comes? Or is there a culture of they're here to help us? We want to be transparent. We want to ensure that we are accountable throughout the day. And so when audit comes in, we, you know, we don't have any fears, but they are, you know, they are working with us to ensure that, you know, there are not any compliance failures or what have you. So like I said, it's very easy to cross on to the wrong side of culture if the tone from the top is not what it's supposed to be. So like I said, that was just my experience. I worked in some Swiss and I worked in, like I say, Canadian, and I saw those differences there. Okay, and so I don't know if you're having the same type of experience if you worked in different types of companies. Okay, so it says in implementing the risk-based approach, companies should be given the opportunity to make reasonable judgment. No two companies are likely to adopt the same detailed practices. In this regard, regulators should identify and disseminate guidelines on sound practices. And again, that's what it is. And you would see that in the guidelines, some things say must and some things say shall. And so again, that's where you are challenged, especially if an account needs to be open and the guideline says shall, or there's a best practice that you want to carry out, whereas the law doesn't say you must get those 2 pieces of ID, but you created it. Yes?
I didn't realize there was a difference when you see shall and must.
Yeah, must means it's law. Shall means you
suggested.
Yeah, suggesting that it's recommended a best practice.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you look at the central bank guidelines, and you work in an institution where they challenge everything in the guideline, you would see that they don't support best practice at all. And they see best practice as you just trying to make it difficult to do business.
Well, I've been treating shall and must as one and the same.
Yeah, most people do. But again, if you have somebody who challenge it, then you have to go and do some research to see what does it mean. Yeah, but yeah. So the central bank, when it talks about identification, it just says you must produce these documents, you know, passport, proof of address, and what have you, 2 forms of communication. And after that, then it says you shall provide source of income. So we have people trying to challenge us and say, why it doesn't say you must provide source of income. I said, how else do we determine where this money coming from and if it's legit? But the law doesn't say so. So why do you want to say so? You're not a lawyer, and that's the experience.
Talking about source of income, Ms. Bullitt, sorry. You know, where people would normally just request source of wealth corroboration for high-risk accounts. But if you were to be audited, the auditors would also ask you, well, where's the evidence for the source of funds? You know, like they give you a source of wealth corroboration, but if they say their money coming from this place or they got their money from this, where's your proof that this is where they got the money from?
Which is correct, because again, you are required to know your customer, and then again, how do you create a profile? And this is why it's so confusing, that I don't understand why that's not a must. Because how do you generate a profile and just know that Ms. Bullitt only makes $100 a week and she deposited in $5,000? The minute I say my thresholds are going to be 5,000 or more, and I'm making $100 a week, how do you corroborate that if you must not ask me for my source of income?
But
You
Ms.
know?
Bullet,
Yes.
you can't really cooperate when you were at onboarding. You can't really say where that customer come with, where that money come from, that the customer opened the account, to be honest.
How you mean?
If I walk in to open up an account with $500, I could tell you, yeah, I have a job. During the account opening, the onboarding process, you get all my employment information, but you do not know for a fact that I got that money, the $500 from salary. You don't know exactly where I got that that specific $500 from that I'm opening this account with today.
We don't ever know for sure where anything exactly comes from.
Exactly.
But remember, ladies, now we can mitigate risk. We cannot eliminate it, right? And in our mitigation process means that I will ask Vissaline for her job letter. If she makes $1,000 a month, I imagine that it makes sense that she could save 500, right? But what we were seeing, that persons was making $100 a month and depositing 500. So then that's, you didn't cooperate. It didn't make sense. And so again, these are just controls put in place that should make sense to say that we did a proper check. We can never eliminate it, but we can mitigate it.
It's too so that you could, when the regulators come in, you just need to be able to say, well, here is what we did. We did what we were supposed to do.
These are balances.
That's what
and
it is.
checks. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's honestly what it is.
Yeah. So Vissaline, honestly, we were seeing just like oh Lord, what's the lady's name who was brought before the court? Urban Renewal lady. We saw where she was making $1,500 to $2,000 a month, and she deposited $1.3 million. Okay, without anybody saying where did this money come from? How can you afford this? How can this be going through your personal account? So we saw a lot of that. We saw Edison Sumner, his company, saying that we opened this account for investments, but then you go and buy a BMW and a Rolex watch and you take your family on vacation with the people's investment money. So again, had we not at onboarding and said, what are the source of funds? His source of funds stipulated that my clients are going to be investing. And so each client you can expect to deposit between $10,000 and $100,000. So here it is, we have this account with $10 million on it, right? And then now $10 million and you want to buy a Rolex watch? You want to buy a BMW? Wasn't this somebody else's money for investment? And so again, these are just two. Again, we can't eliminate, but to help make it make sense, because people were coming in the bank and just telling us foolishness and we didn't cooperate any of it. Just at Christmas, somebody told me they want to buy $5 million worth of shares. They sent me this about tickets, the book agreement to buy property. I said, but I thought this was for shares in this company or what have you, but just within the profile. You send me a whole tick agreement that you thought I wasn't going to read to tell me for a piece of property somewhere else. What is it? Okay, so we won't eliminate, we'll mitigate. And again, like you say, we won't ever know. However, this is just a guideline that we must follow to help reduce money laundering and the terrorist financing and to have some control over it. Otherwise, people will just run loose like they were doing but in 2018.
That's the same thing. That's the same way we look at it too. When we send in intercompany emails, like, guess what? If I ask you for something and you don't give it to me, that's fine, but I go have my email trail to show I asked you for it. I told you I needed it. You didn't give it to me. So I think that's more or less just what it is, to make sure you follow all the guidelines and you do what it is you say you're supposed to do. That way you can't get zinged. If I did everything the regulators told me to do, I can't get zinged for that because I did what they told me to do.
Right. And then you don't be an accessory to a crime. or to money
Exactly.
laundering or what have you. Correct.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So it says, in summary, a risk-based approach includes the following: risk identification and assessment, the customer's products and services, delivery channels, geographic areas of operation. So do we assume, do we accept, or do we avoid? Do we want to take this business on? Are we going to do business with Russia? Are we going to do business with Venezuela? You know, so all of that helps you to answer those questions. What are the risks involved? Okay. And then risk management and mitigation. Again, are we going to get indemnity insurance on our signatures? Because of course we can do all these, put all these controls in place, follow the policy, do what we're supposed to do. And the scammers are still smarter than us. And so they can still defraud the system. Okay. Then risk monitoring. Who is responsible for this? Okay. The book says the risk assessment is only good as today. Ms. Bullitt is teaching this class, the pandemic hit, I could go and commit a crime. Okay. I was law abiding today, tomorrow I'm a criminal. Okay. Can we change all these things overnight? No. And this is why we put expiry dates on them, and we ensure that we at least have some control over it, that we check certain things monthly or annually or quarterly, and we have it documented. These are our checks and balances, and this is what we do. And then documentation. Again, policies, procedures, job description, showing people who is accountable for what, who should be doing what, how it should be done. And again, we don't want to just write these 100-page books or policies and these procedures that nobody ever reads and nobody understands, even if they read it, because it's not in layman's terms. But we want to have proper documentation and then trainings, and then we want to check sustainability. We want to ensure that staff understand what the procedure says, what the policy says, and what they should be doing. Okay, Deanna, you have a question?
Yes, Ms. Bullard, while you're on this specific part, there was a homework question. I think it was an open question. It said that your company will be introducing a new product to its clients in 2 months. And it asks that you have been asked to select a product and conduct a risk assessment, considering if it will be offered to your clients who reside in Cyprus, South Africa, and Uruguay. So would this section that you just highlighted, would the answer be in line with that? So you would first identify the risks within each of those territories?
Correct. So you should, but to do some research, you would see that they are high risk, you know,
right.
Whenever when you see a question like that, more than likely they are high risk countries that they deal with. So you will look at the geographic risk within those countries, and then you could select any product. You could say it's cryptocurrency, and then you could go to say, well, in the Bahamas, cryptocurrency is not regulated as yet, and these are the risks involved with it, and what happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, so then it goes on to talk about in determining whether a customer requires simplified due diligence or enhanced due diligence. It's necessary the company to carry out a formal assessment regularly, and that's when we risk rate our clients. So if they're high risk, of course, we risk rate them, or we do a review annually, and then if it's medium risk, then every 2 years, and then if it's low, every 3 years. We ensure that internal procedure systems and controls, including staff awareness, adequately reflect the risk assessment. And again, for awareness, my best example is Dirty Money, and we talked about Ozarks, and there are other programs out there, but again, for awareness, because when I watched that HSBC case for the first time, I was shocked. And like I said, I watched it because I attended a seminar that the Securities Commission held at the Hilton, and they started to call off different fines, and they said $1.9 billion in the entire there was about 300 persons in the room, and everybody gasped like, oh my God, $1.9 million. Again, that's because we broke. We have no billions, and we would think that was a lot until we watched Dirty Money and realized, and even the speaker assumed that that was a lot and not so much a slap on the wrist for HSBC. Okay, so again, you want to ensure that you have this awareness of, does it really look, is it really how it is, or y'all know what I'm trying to say. You know, it may seem a certain way, but do we really know the truth? Or, you know, so perception is sometimes skewed. So educate yourself and be knowledgeable so you can ensure that you have the correct information. Okay. And again, it just goes on again to say, ensure customer identification procedures reflect risk characteristics. If you're high risk, we need enhanced due diligence. We need a little bit more. If you're PAP, we need a little bit more. We need a little history on your country, and to make sure that politicians aren't being brought before the court and you're not up for impeachment. And can you imagine having a US account on Donald Trump every week? You didn't know if he was going to be impeached or some other foolishness was going to happen. So that would have been a very volatile account that had to keep being checked. So, you know, God help the people who have the US government accounts when you have such a volatile president. Okay. A well-seasoned risk-based strategy should be as follows: actively monitoring all members of senior management in determining the risk posed by money laundering and terrorist financing for which they have responsibility. And boy, I can tell you, this was very, very tough in 2018 when the laws changed and the risk assessment became mandatory through, you know, the FATF recommendation 1, and then I think the FTRA section 5. Persons outside or senior management outside of compliance did not feel like this was their job. Now, of course, we would have heard the term compliance is everybody's business. But when I spoke to HR and I said, listen, we have an AML risk assessment that's due in June, and then a enterprise-wide risk assessment that's due in October. The HR lady, I started with her, she looked at me like I was crazy, and I said, well, so we have to send a word out to senior management. And I said, I would like everybody's job appraised, or, you know, job description, because I want to add this to their job description. And she said, can you do that? I said, why wouldn't I be able to do that? She said, I don't know, you should wait till the board meeting to do that. I said, you know, I plan to, but, you know, what the board delegates their responsibilities to senior management. I would just stand up and tell the board that, hey, the law has changed and this is what's required and this is my recommendation. And she said, well, you can do it to everybody else's job description except mine, because I really don't have time for that. You're going to have to do HR. I said, I would not know the risks associated with HR. I said, you know, this can be twofold. I can give you a copy of the business impact analysis and you can see what possible risks affect HR. Oh, I won't have time for that. And this HR, so HR didn't have time for it. Of course, finance didn't have time for it. Credit didn't have time for it. Nobody had time for it. And so this is now senior management thinking that this is my job as a compliance officer, because we didn't even have a risk officer at that time. Okay. And so this is very important. Everybody has to come on board. Senior management, you will not know all the risks associated with credit or with finance. So you really had, you know, I had to do trainings upon trainings upon trainings. I had to put it in their job description. The first year, it still didn't work. I had to tie it to their bonus. I had to stand up and say, if you don't give your share of information for your risk assessment, this will be an incomplete and you won't be able to get bonus. And you imagine how I almost got shot in a board meeting telling senior management that they won't get bonuses if they didn't do what they were supposed to. And they were worse than the entry-level staff. They was like, what? How dare you? We have to vote on that. No, you shouldn't have. But that is how far I had to go in order for them to even take it seriously, you know? And so it was a horrendous process, but that's how far you have to go. You have to put it on their job descriptions and you have to tie it to their bonuses, or else it simply won't be done. And again, because persons were having such a hard time, I had a person who was in my class who had just been promoted to compliance because she was there for 25 years and she was let go because she didn't believe, you know, credit unions were just being regulated. She didn't believe it had to be done. And so she missed the June deadline and they got charged $50,000. And then she missed the October deadline because nobody, of course, she couldn't convince the other people in the credit union to do it. And she just lost the job. And it was very unfortunate. Now we are in 2021. Persons know the regulators have been enforcing it. They've seen the fines. And so now they're taking it serious. But that first 2 years, it was a horrendous process. Go ahead, Felicia.
I was just talking to somebody from an institution, I think that was Wednesday, and they were saying how they were getting pushback because the directors didn't feel as if they needed to do training. So they were there trying to explain to them, listen, everybody has to do training. They were like, no, we're directors, we don't have to do it. And I'm like, if the people at the top aren't trying to be compliant and trying to set the example, why y'all feel as if y'all could penalize these employees now who don't want to do it when the directors feel as if they don't need to do it? And the directors too need to do training.
Yes. And guess what? This started off in 2018, I think, as well. The board engagement policy was sent out by central bank, and it has a code of conduct for the board, all sorts of stuff, corporate governance, all sorts of stuff they had to go through because you know, all the other staff prior to 18 was trained on AML except the board. And surprisingly, one of the inspectors from central bank, and I think I told you all this story before, she was in my class and she said, Miss Bullitt, you want me to tell you how this board engagement policy came out and we're making it mandatory for AML training? I said, sure, go ahead. She said, you know, we just happened to be doing an audit, doing a board meeting. And so I saw the priest from a very popular church at the water cooler. So of course I took that as an opportunity to go and have a conversation with him. And so I said, so blah, blah, blah. And how do you, you know, glad to see you and whatever. So how do you handle your PEPs? And he said, PEP? What is a PEP?
Wow.
I told you all the story already. Some of you would have heard this, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. And she said, you know, you're politically exposed people. And he said, oh, I'm just the priest. I'm just here for the prayer and blah, 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 whatever, and for the good lunch. You know, he just cracked a joke. But from that conversation, she went back and she said, listen, these people aren't trained, you know, friends, family, and lovers sitting up on these board and these financial services, and they don't even know what a PEP is. And, you know, that's a minimum you should know. And so she said, you would be surprised how many persons are in this category. And this is why they insisted that the board be trained on AML as well. Because, you know, there's always a priest or somebody outside of the industry who I guess who's just there to keep the peace. And so this is how that came about. So, and it's very necessary because a lot of them just don't know and they just sign. They don't ever ask questions. They only come for the luncheon. And you see many companies failing. So that is very, very important. Okay. So everybody has to be trained. And now they even put limits. They put like a 7-year on the independent, a 7-year on the CEO. Different things have to be, you know, you have to rule out the old and bring in the new and make some changes, because you'll see that many boards become very stagnant. In fact, central banks have even put in place that if you have 4 board meetings each year, they're gonna attend one. Okay, just to make sure that everybody's participating, everybody is sound and intelligent and know what they're actually talking about. Go ahead, Felicia. No, okay, I'll lower your hand then. Oh, did we do so? Okay. Yeah, so yeah, we said all of that to talk about monitoring senior management. Yeah, and that's the extent that you have to go to. Okay. Taking into consideration internal decisions may increase the level of exposure to risk of money laundering, and then outsourcing. And of course, we saw as the law changed, even before, we see a lot of back offices going to Trinidad. We see some going to Dominican Republic and what have you. Back in my day when I was at Royal, the Bahamas used to be the hub for all operations and what have you. Now everybody is trying to decrease costs. And of course, we see, years ago, we went to India with our technology. And of course, that was a language barrier, but they thought it was cheaper. And that did not work for us at all, because persons just simply did, they spent hours on the phone trying to get things solved, and they simply couldn't understand them. Now, the culture in Trinidad is just vastly, gravely different. And we see the level that, I speak highly of Royal Bank and the Canadian training. However, it has gone under the ground since everything has been outsourced to Trinidad. The culture is completely just different, and their focus is not primarily on service. Their salaries are, our salaries are double or sometimes triple what their salaries are. And so we see a grave, like I say, difference. And I'm sorry if anybody's offended by my comments, but that's just my humble opinion. And so whilst we may save money, are we really getting our clients getting the value for the money that is being spent? And the fees are ridiculous. So to see that the fees are gravely high and the service is so poor, I don't know how the institutions are gonna last, but Godspeed. Okay, and then it says, taking into consideration the nature, scale, complexity of the business, its operations, its volume, and size of transactions. And this is overlooked in every institution, mainly because people, they just trying to save money. And so they don't care if they have one customer or 1,000 customers. They'll have a one-man band. They'll have a compliance officer who's risk, corporate governance, HR. If they have a legal background, that person will be legal too. So it's just an overwhelming amount of work that the person can't even get to any of it. And like I said, we had an audit before where we walked in and we were referred to one person for the entire audit. And then we said, well, why is this person the lead? Is this the coordinator? They said, no, that person wears all those hats. So we stopped the audit and they had to hire 3 people to help that one person on that desk. The person was so overwhelmed. Okay, and so when you really have to look at metrics. People don't take metrics into account. You want to find out what percentage of your business is high, which percentage is medium or low. We are Bahamians primarily, but we work in the offshore world, and you would find that we have some Asian clients, we have some European clients, we have clients from Latin America, but it's just pushed out to, we have 5 account officers, everybody take a certain amount. Now, you really have to look at the type of account. Some accounts are very operational and they require much more time. They send out a lot of wires, they pay salaries, they do all sorts of stuff daily. And so you really have to look at the metrics. You have to look at the volume. You got to look at the size. You got to look at the geographic location. If you truly want to pick up patents out of Asia, you should have an Asian desk or a European desk or a Latin American desk. And that person should speak their language, somebody with Mandarin, somebody with Spanish or Portuguese or what have you, if you truly want to do what you need to do properly. Okay, so this the volume, the size of the transactions. You have 5 officers, 3 are senior, 2 are junior. You want to make sure that the majority of the high risk are with the seniors, and so therefore the seniors should have about 50 accounts. The juniors should have about 100 accounts. And again, you could give the juniors 1 or 2 high risks that are not so operational to practice, because hopefully they will move up. But you find that we have 5 officers, nobody is assigned a relationship officer. We have a generic box, whoever available answer. And so there's no way that you could know 800 clients. Okay, there's no way you could pick a patent. There's no way you could spend that time in review to really know your customer and see that there are changes in this account, or they are outside of their profile. And sometimes we don't have the very savvy system that spits out reports that tells us the next day that Felicia brought in $5 million. Okay, or if it's below, probably 5 million would hit, but something below a threshold, we'd never know that Miss Bullet deposited, or she's smurfing and she deposited 5 times $10,000 below the threshold, right? And so this is very, very important. And for the life of me, especially in offshore jurisdictions or offshore companies, this is not done. Even in the retail business, this is not done. You know, juniors working with the high risk, you know, people with no training, no awareness, or just because they've been there the longest, it's all sorts of problems. But push in your organizations for them to scale the clients to we in some instances we don't even have a marketing department, so normally we'd have all this information. But if we don't have marketing, we should know who our clients are. We should know 10% is from Russia, 50% from Asia, Venezuela, oil and gas. But you know, we should know the diamond industry. You know, we should know who our customers are and what businesses they operate in. So it'll take some time to document it. It is very important, and that way we have like a panoramic view of the organization and the importance of knowing the customer, and that's the way we could check out or see who's money laundering or suspicious or outside of the profile. Okay, that's the only way. But we don't ever take the time or spend the time to really know who the customers are. Okay, but and that's important. Even we may have an appetite that says we don't have an appetite for Russia. However, we have 10 people on our Russian books, on our accounts. We have a Russian profile. I audited a company that says we don't have an appetite for PEP, and they had 4 government accounts. And Jesus, they had Angola, one of the most corrupt governments in the world. So I don't know if it was a training or what have you, but they say they don't have who would have been signing on those accounts. The Ministry of Finance, isn't that a PEP? And he had a personal account too, but y'all don't have an appetite for PEP. So again, what you document, because it's in 100 pages, please read the important parts. Please take the policy and read it every week, a piece of it, and make sure it makes sense. Royal Bank had signed up with Harvard Mentor Program, and so they allowed us 2 hours per week to go on Harvard Mentor and do trainings and what have you. Please, if you don't implement it in your company, if it's not implemented in your company, ask, make it in a suggestion, put in the suggestion box. 2 hours per week, the company could dedicate to you know, training and upgrading and reading, and you know, all of this should not have to be done in your personal time. But if it's a sound company, it should be that the staff are allotted some time to read, especially if you have like training needs, and most companies do have training needs, and take this time and just read over the policy, ensure that it makes sense. Don't wait till you come in and you shut down. Again, we're being internationally watched, so no more slaps on the wrist, no more he in the clip, or my CEO in the clip. No, when the FATF comes in here to help the FIU, we could be in a lot of problems. So like I say, start now, you know, and training is very important, and it takes time because a lot of us aren't trained. Okay. The book goes on to talk about assessing product and service risk, determine the characteristics of the products and service being provided. It says from a jurisdictional perspective, the following are considered potentially high risk. And so back to our risk ratings, there are normally 10 to 14 categories on our risk. And I think the next chapter will be a look at some risk ratings, or the chapter after. Yeah, we'll look at some risk ratings. And but the law says, you know, these are considered high risk straight off the bat. Okay. So you must put a section in your on our risk rating. We have a little dot that says high risk automatically, and we click on that, and so it comes high risk automatically. It says so a corresponding banking service. And what is happening now with corresponding banking, it is high risk because in some cases we are doing wires on behalf of clients that are not ours. Now, not in the offshore, not in the retail, because I know recently when the law changed, they said, listen, for us to send out a wire, you must have an account with us. But in some offshore banks, we had an account out of Antigua and Barbuda, and in Antigua and Barbuda, they are a Schedule 2 country, which means they do not have sufficient. They have some AML framework in place, but they don't have sufficient. And so we in the Bahamas were sending wires on their behalf. So they were not our clients. And then in Antigua and Barbuda, they did not require passports or identification to send a wire. You could just walk into the bank and say, I want to send a wire, and they would send it. They didn't even require you to have an account. So that customer was unknown. And so because we wanted to offer that service to them, they told, we were told by the central bank, hey, their country doesn't require it. However, our country does. And so if these people want to send these wires, they need to bring in passports, send it to us. We verify it. We keep it on file, and then we send off the wire. So we did that for a very long time until our correspondent bank flew in and said, hey, I see a lot of your clients are coming out of Antigua and Barbuda. Do you have a new book? And so we said, no, we're offering correspondent banking services to them. And they said, oh, no. They approached us, and because they don't have the proper AML standards in place, we denied them. And so that's a tactic that the FATF is, sending out the countries who don't want to update their anti-money laundering policies. And so you're not allowed to send that wire on their behalf. We call that nesting. And you would find that a lot of banks, because they were fined or because say they deal in high-risk business, and you would find that the corresponding banks at the US, they say, we don't send wires on behalf of Venezuela and Cuba, the sanctioned countries. So what the offshore banks did is they just went and they opened an account with somewhere in the UK. And then the UK, after they were, or somewhere in Europe, after they were slammed by the FATF, then they came back and say, okay, we could do business with some sanctioned countries. However, if they have a CPI index less than 30, we can't do it. So this is how they blocked out the system, and all of this is like a tactic to get these countries to update their anti-money laundering laws. And so we were told that we cannot provide that service to them, and this was one of our biggest clients. And so they considered that nesting, and so they told us, you have 90 days to close out your biggest client, or we will no longer do business with you. And so that's what because we had other clients, and we couldn't lose our correspondent banking accounts, so we had to close that out. But there's a lot of risk involved, and countries that don't have proper regimes in place, and even banks now I see is doing a lot of it. It's called nesting. It's not necessarily legal, so make sure that you are aware of what's happening. Okay. So that's nesting. Then private banking and wealth management. If you are a private banking and wealth management company, then of course it does not mean you're high risk overall, but you would have to speak with your regulator, because trust services are very high risk, and so you want to be careful what percentage of your business are trust, or you could come over your company on hold to come at high risk, and of course nobody wants to be high risk. And then banking and precious metal and trading and delivery. Savannah, could you mute your mic, please?
Oh, sorry, 1 second. Where did it go? Looking for the button.
Okay, and so oil and gas too is very high risk. So you want to be careful with those types of industries: diamonds, marijuana, pornography, and you would find when you get a Wolfsburg questionnaire, that is the questionnaire that goes along with a correspondent banking service. They ask you what percentage of your business is this, and if you have too high of a percentage, then they say no, you cannot open up this account. And so imagine your low risk clients, you're not able to send wires on behalf of them because you have a high risk portfolio. So you want to be careful with that. Okay. And so you want to assess delivery risks. It involves taking into consideration whether the relationship with the customer is indirectly conducted through intermediaries or introducers. And again, in the offshore world, nobody walks into the bank and opens up an account. We have EAM, the external asset managers and business introducers sitting in Switzerland, in Russia, in Europe, in Asia, and they walk into their institutions and they send us the business and we give them a percentage. And so to us, we would have never met this client. So it's non-face-to-face. And so the central bank just says, if you don't physically meet this client in the Bahamas, then you are to have a section on your risk rating that says this account is non-face-to-face and the highest rating should be in there. Not that overall it should be high risk, but that category should be high. Remember, there are 10 categories: where you live, where you're born, nationality, what business you do. So all these categories add up together and then possibly give you a rating, high, medium, or low. But this particular, if we take that, let's say we give you 10 points, you would get the full 10 points if we, you were introduced to us by an external asset manager or business introducer. Okay, assessing customer risk involves determining the appropriate due diligence when entering in a relationship and ongoing due diligence. Again, back to the risk rating. Once we risk rate you, high, medium, or low. Assessing a geographical or country risk is closely related to a customer's counterparty risk. Which jurisdictional risks seem to be high? Additional measures, including enhanced due diligence, are required. Some jurisdictions are prohibitive. It just depends on your risk appetite of, some you would find that Canadian banks, they say absolutely no Russia, no high risk countries or what have you, but you would find that the Swiss banks, give me all the Russia, give me Iran. The other day they sent some from Afghanistan. I said, really? Crazy. Okay. So, and again, how do you determine if these countries are high risk? The Basel Committee country risk rating, they've been identified as having strategic deficiencies. And again, our sister country, Turks and Caicos, right there, right under Afghanistan on the block list of the FATF, okay? Major producing transit countries, again, you would read some books when you go to ICA, but the Bahamas, listed as #1 transit country in the US, is listed as a transit country. So all of that makes us higher risk, but of course the governor is trying to mitigate that and put controls in place with the sand dollar and reducing the leverage and what have you to ensure that overall we don't become high risk. And then again, vulnerable to bribery and corruption. Again, our CPI index is strong. We had 66, we looked at it, I think last week. So we are okay there. Excessive secrecy laws, of course, we know back in the day we were a tax haven and we had lots of secrecy laws and confidentiality. We do still have confidentiality laws. However, we signed TEs with various countries to say, if you're from Europe and you open an account in Bahamas, we're going to tell Europe that the people have the money here so they can't evade taxes. If you're politically unstable, and I always go back to Brazil, the president being impeached, and many countries around the world, their presidents have been impeached. Their central bank governors have gone to jail. There's loads of corruption all over the Caribbean. Somebody even did a seminar or webinar on it the other day. I was looking for a copy of it, but I was unable to find it. And then Guatemala has been in serious deficits. They borrowed a whole bunch of money from China and couldn't pay. And that's what China does. It loans you $1 billion, know that you can't pay, and now they acquired their port all in different countries in Africa, Guatemala, all over. So we got to be very careful. We just borrowed that $192 million to do our port, and so we need a fiscally responsible government to ensure that they pay that bill, because next thing you know, we have the second largest cruise registry in the world. Of course, the Chinese would want to own that. So we got to make sure that the government collects the taxes and pays the bills, okay? I said before, the risk assessment is only as good as the day. Miss Bullet going to commit a crime right after this class. So make sure you keep that updated. And again, you don't want to be overwhelmed, with checking it every day, but have sound practices in place. And then the higher risk products and services you want to check perhaps quarterly and make sure it's still relevant, because let's just think about before the pandemic, most persons didn't have any risk surrounding working from home, and then the pandemic hit, and so then we had to get everybody a computer and send them home, right, or close the bank early or whatever. So that was something that had to be added. So think about before 2020, us not even having I mean, we had the business continuity plans or what have you, but a lot of banks stopped doing the services because they simply did not have systems or controls or in place to carry them out. So this is, it's not only, like I said, there are different events, hurricanes, pandemics that could affect the risk, and things that you had never thought about now has to be included in your risk assessment. Okay, so the book's talking about criminal risk, regulatory risk with fines, withdrawal of licenses, removals of persons. The institution where I was at, the CEO had to be removed. Legal risks, a breach of contract, reputational risks. Again, I was at Royal Bank. There are 5 entities of Royal Bank in the Bahamas. We were very profitable. We were the trust company. However, we were being sued by the French government, and we started to go into the newspaper every day. And so before Royal Bank suffered the reputational risk of being the court case, they first were charged with assisting the customers with tax evasion. We were acquitted. And then some other stolen art. We had, the person that we were managing, had the stolen art. I think I told you the story, but rather than stay open and be dragged through the mud every day by the media, wealth management closed out. So to avoid the reputational risk of Royal Retail, Royal Capital Markets, Royal Finco, and what have you. Okay, so that's how serious it is. And even whilst I was at Royal, there are many persons that had stolen and stealing by reason of employment, and we arrested them, never showed up to court again, being in the newspaper every day saying the Royal Bank employees is thief was just too much regular reputational risk, so they just never showed up to court. Then there is concentration risk. Again, that same account out of Antigua and Barbuda, before our correspondent bank made us close that account, the central bank did write us a letter and said that from our financials, they see that Antigua and Barbuda, that bank, had all its eggs in one basket, had all their money with us, meaning 90% of their funds was with the bank, and the CEO was being removed. And so they said, should that bank fail, Antigua and Barbuda's bank would fail. And so they said they consider that concentration risk, too concentrated all the money in one bank. So they had said, wire out 50% of those people money so they don't fail as well. And then in the end, after that, the correspondent bank came and they closed them out completely because they don't have proper, their Schedule 2 country. And so, yeah, that's where we were at with that. So that's concentration risk. And then there are liability risk, operational risk, credit risk, all sorts of risks you must, check. And again, how do we keep account of all of this? Again, compliance is everybody's business. And we talked about this last week. We rolled out, the 3 levels of defense in regards to risk, and that is front office and managers are considered the first level of defense. Compliance is considered the second level of defense, and then audit is considered the third level of defense. So everybody has a part to play in ensuring that this risk-based approach that we would have implemented into the company they have a part to play. And again, this is in every training session, we have to push this because of course we don't have time for this. This above our pay level. We are already overworked and underpaid, and this compliance with this has nothing to do with us. No, we have to train our persons to know that this affects us all. They are to be aware of the risks in their company or their department and how to mitigate it, what policies and procedures are relevant to it, and to ensure that we speak knowledgeably to it, because when hackers come, and they're coming, we can speak knowledgeably to it and not get fired for negligence, not go to jail, because we had a position that we weren't qualified for, and we didn't go and upgrade ourselves, and we never take the time to read. And so, you know, just protect yourself. Okay?
Ms.
And
Bullard, who did you say was the first and third level of defense?
management and the front line. Okay, any questions? No, clear as mud?
Ms. Ballard, sorry, give me the third line of defense, please.
Okay, so the first line is management in the front office. The second line is compliance, and the third line is audit. And you call it the 3 lines of defense regarding risk. Okay, so chapter 6, just again, we covered that in intro, just statutory requirements of the identification again. And so next week, what we are going to do is this is the actual National Risk Assessment Questionnaire from the Securities Commission, and you must see 100 questions on this, right? And so next week we will go through this as a practical and answer these questions. So we will again have awareness and see exactly what is really required of us. Again, through these questionnaires, they would have sent it out to all these sectors right here. Can everybody see the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So all of these sectors are in the financial services sector. So every commercial bank should have gotten this. Every credit union, every gaming house, every insurance company should have gotten this. And essentially what this survey does is they, based on the responses, they go and say, okay, from the accounting departments or from the accounting industry, we have 50 accounting firms that have a corporate service financial arm, and 49 answered this survey. 10 pawnbrokers and 9 answered. 50 money services business, 50 answered, like that. And so they give statistics, and then they say what level you are at. And then you answer the following questions. Below are a number of crimes which underlie money laundering as well as money laundering itself. Please answer on the basis of whether these crimes are perceived as a threat to the Bahamas, yes or no. And so we are going to go through and answer this. And we're not going to submit it, but just to answer it, because you'll be surprised at some of the questions they ask. They even ask something about Freeport and the risks associated with that, and if we are affected by it. So next week, we are going to, because we, or should be, for the persons who weren't in intro, you can just read chapter 6 and then ask questions about the statutory requirements if you need a refresher. But primarily, we're going to spend the class answering this survey. And so what the government expected was that each of the persons in the industry answered this, they send it back, they compile it, and remember, they had promised that the risk assessment would have been ready for March 2021. I think this came out in March, so I don't know how they were going to get this information, compile it, and send it out immediately. But of course, it's still not, we haven't gotten word that it's been completed or submitted. I don't know if they are waiting now, because once they would have gathered all the statistical information, put it in the National Risk Assessment, I guess fix whatever needs to be fixed, and then submit it to the Basel Committee to risk rate us. And overall, we are medium high, and we want to stay there, because God forbid if we get a high, that's going to, not be good reputation for us. Of course, we're already perceived as high, so we have to work diligently to ensure that overall we're not. Okay, so we're gonna go through this, and we're gonna answer these questions, and then say what our view is on how, and this is what you would do as a compliance officer or the risk officer within your institution, and submit this. And I know when I saw statistics from the one last year, they had said, it was a very small number of institutions that did not answer, but they said, and they will be fined, and so I don't know, they recommend that you complete it, but if you don't, they send you a fine, because again, all of this is, they're trying to gather the information on the country as a whole. And could you see all these industries? Could you imagine whose job it is to bring all this information together, and then wherever there are threats, and try and mitigate and fix them before it goes out to the international market. So this is a grand job. God be with the person who ever has to do this. Okay, so we're gonna do our part, and they say it should take no more than 30 minutes, but we are going to participate and gather this information. Doesn't it sound exciting, girls?
Whoa!
You can't wait, right? You can't wait till next week. I know.
How you know?
I know.
Oh my gosh.
I know. But again, this is why we're here. We have to make this exciting as possible. And yeah, so we'll take the remainder of the time to continue the classwork. And if you have any more questions before we leave, just let me know. And if not, just have a fabulous weekend. I'm happy with the results of this week. Persons read the newspaper, persons got their 5%. And so this is very good, a very good report at the halfway mark. Please don't lose your momentum. It's very easy. And start to schedule your time. We know when the exam date is. If your office you study leave, please try to get the 2 days off. If they don't, if you have family responsibility, even you could take a day, or if you want to invest your vacation, if your office does not offer the study leave, but start to now prepare your time. And like Alicia said, she's going to answer all the questions. So when she gets to review, she's not so overwhelmed with trying to figure out what happened in chapter 1 or chapter 2 or what have you. Okay, and just like intro, the key is to be organized and prepared. You walk into that exam knowing I'm going to answer sanctions, I'm going to answer tax, I'm going to answer risk, because all of that is, I have that under my belt. Okay, and like I said, the classwork all came from past exams, the homework from past exams. So all of that is just practice, and you skim over it, make sure you understand what the question says, and you can answer them. If you're having difficulties, let me know, and we have sufficient time to go and discuss it. Okay, so nobody should be week 8 trembling and saying, Miss Bullet, I don't understand and this, or I'm lost, or it's not clear. This is why we're here. Okay, so let me know. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Ms. Bullard, the exam, where will it be?
Well, currently the institute is on a rotational basis now because of the high COVID numbers. Now, my previous class had an exam there on Thursday night and it was fine. They have 8 classrooms. They had, I guess, 2 persons per class and it was fine. You just show up with your keys and your sanitizer. And I mean, well, they have sanitizer, but just your keys. You don't bring any books, bags, phones, anything of the sort. Until more than likely it will be held at the institute. Closer to the time, once we are scheduling the review class, you will call Miss Dean and make an appointment, and she'll schedule you.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, great. So, ladies, finish your classwork, then have a breather and relax and unwind and have a fabulous weekend, and we'll do this again next week.
Thank you. You too, you guys. Stay safe.
Okay. Take care and be safe. Yes.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.